The history of the Rajputs. The Rajput warrior community of the northern Indian subcontinent has played a significant role in the region's history for more than 1,000 years. While many kingdoms, confederations, and empires rose and fell, large extended families or clans of Rajput warriors adapted, survived, and persisted. They were often pivotal in restoring order from chaos and preserving their people and culture in the wake of destruction. Part 1. Origins. The origin of these illustrious warriors is a matter of intense scholarly debate. What is broadly agreed upon is that the Rajputs emerged as a social, political, and military force sometime after the collapse of the Gupta Empire. The prominent theories on the origins of the Rajput community can be broken down into 4 broad categories. 1. They were descended from members of the Kshatriya warrior class of the Gupta Empire that had survived the collapse and later established their own smaller kingdoms. 2. They were descended from foreign invaders who assimilated into Hindu society. 3. They were descended from members of higher or lower castes that in turbulent times armed themselves, dedicated their lives to excellence in warfare, and refused to be victims of the times. 4. Any combination of 2 or all of the above theories. The Gupta Empire oversaw a golden age in Indian history. Great achievements were made in the realms of science, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, literature, art, and architecture. Wealth poured into India, with long-distance trade routes that reached as far as Rome and China. All good things in this world come to an end, and so did the glory days of the Gupta. Internal power struggles and religious strife was followed by a cavalcade of nomadic invaders. Towns, cities, and temples were razed to the ground. International trade was severed. The economy collapsed. And then, there was only war for a time. The largest and most powerful group of invaders was the nomadic Huna people, which included the Kitterites and Alkan Huns. They were related to some extent to the Huns of Attila who ransacked Europe, and the Hephthalites that ravaged the Sassanid Persian empires like Lakshmi, Vishnu, and Shiva. They also stopped destroying temples and started building them instead. The Empire decisively defeated the Huna. The most powerful, after being individually beaten time and again, a large coalition of small kingdoms, along with a surviving remnant of the Gupta Empire, decisively defeated the Huna. The most powerful king in that victorious coalition, Yashodharman, conquered his former allies and briefly united the northern Indian subcontinent, before he died and it all fell apart again. The defeated Huns retreated to the periphery of the subcontinent, in the west and in the north. For more than a century, they remained a constant destabilizing factor. In the early 7th century, the Indian king, Harshavardhana, established a powerful empire, and even sent an embassy that reached the imperial Tang Chinese court. But by the time the Chinese reciprocated, and a Tang ambassador reached India, Harsha's empire had already collapsed. The chaotic times continued for the remainder of the 7th century and into the 8th. It was this remarkably turbulent period in Indian history, beginning in the 6th century, that multiple extraordinary events occurred. It was the development of a game called Chaturanga, where miniature pieces representing infantry, cavalry, chariots, and elephants battled on a checkered board in a simulation of the never-ending wars of that time. This game slowly migrated westwards, gaining in popularity, eventually evolving into the cavalry, chariots, and elephants battled on a checkered board in a simulation of the never-ending wars of that time. Much of the northern Indian subcontinent, the vast majority of the empire's vassal states were composed of large, powerful warrior clans that had grown from the small family groups that had overcome India's centuries of troubled times. Members of these emergent theories tied the Pratiharas to indigenous Kshatriya clans, previous non-warrior groups, or foreign cavalry than Greeks, Sakas, Kushans, and Sasanians. However, overall there is little conclusive evidence to support a predominantly foreign origin, which was the dominant academic theory in the past. Classes among the settled population has been proposed as a theory, and tribes living on the periphery of the Thar Desert. Some have also proposed during a process Trakutas in the south, the Pala Empire in the east, Arab states in the west, and nomadic Turkic tribes in the north. At the beginning of the 10th century, in 916, The Rajtrakutas sacked the Pratiharas' capital city. Despite this disaster, the Pratiharas were able to retake their capital, and successfully, as local, predominantly Rajput rulers took the lead in defending their land from the enemies that most threatened their particular region. The Pratiharas were unable in Indian subcontinent, and after the reign of the Pratiharas, it was from this region that the Rajputs slowly extended their influence and control into. Just for reference, this region was illustrated by the constant and troubled life of its subjects from the top down. States were very decentralized, with little clan or region, which over time could become its own de facto independent clan. At the head of a Rajput state, a sovereign's power was structured differently, depending on the clan. In return, regular military or financial payment was made to the grantor of lost. In one example, a Rajput queen led her deceased husband's ill-fated army affair. In one example, a Rajput Raja had food delivered to a fortress he was besieging, because he believed in the centuries of Rajput prominence. Wars were constantly being fought in silk fabrics and metals. The Rajputs were also expert horse breeders. A century, a new power arrived in the Indian subcontinent, the Ghaznavids. They were Turkic slave soldiers who had freed themselves and created their own empire. The Rajputs organized a confederation of mutual defense. In 1191, the Rajput coalition decisively defeated the Ghurids, wounding the Sultan, who barely escaped with his life. This time, the Rajputs were decisively defeated, and the strategically located city of Delhi. For the next 300 Mongol invasion was ruthless. The Rajputs were cut down to the last few more years. Then, a civil war, Rajput rebellion, becoming the strongest power. Initially, the Rajput Confederacy. During this process, many Rajputs fought peace on favorable Vidars, governed an increasing amount of discrimination with the anti-Mughal Maratha Confederacy, based out of the Deccan Plateau, path into war with the Maratha Confederacy, and sought to place their own princely Peshwa puppet on its throne. They proceeded to fight through the Britishers as the premier power after the war promised the Rajputs protection and autonomy. Afterwards, under the country was slowly eroded, though they did exercise a greater deal of autonomy compared to most other regions in India. 22 Rajput princely states chose to join the new country. They formed the state of Rajasthan, which today has a population of more than 78 million people. Or just a fun fact. Or if you were just learning about Raj.